Hello again, folks, and welcome back to another episode of Checkpoint Coffee from MA Gaming. Joining me here today are some of our PC mates of our team. Uh, it's Mikh'a,
Hey, folks.
Tasi,
Hey there.
and Moni.
Hello. New to PC, but not new to podcasts.
Okay, hey guys, thanks for joining in, and we're here to talk about PC gaming, which has been making some news waves recently across the industry, the gaming industry, where a string of unsuccessful ports, among other things, and along with some issues with hardware scaling in the modern age. This kind of topics have been coming up recently. So here at MN Gaming, we thought we'd weigh in on these issues and see what's up with this, and what can players expect, what the issues are, how bad it is, as in what's the significance of it, and the way forward, so to speak. So, guys, let's kick off with this issue of the PC hardware stuff. Like, obviously, PC gaming requires that you have a good rig, right? Um, so, effectively speaking, the issue of hardware scaling with modern gaming demands is one of the key concerns I think that any PC gamer, self-respecting PC gamer would have. Thoughts?
So thanks, Zubair. So this is actually has been one of the most heated topics. Recently, we've had almost all the PC ports that came out for in recent times have actually had some sort of issues in the performance. I think so. Let's start with something important. Let's start with let's say, should we say, game of the year, Elden Ring. So back in the day, when we say back in the day, it's last year when Elden Ring came out. We've actually played it on both console and on PC.
And I remember you having a very disgruntled time.
Yes. We were lucky enough to experience it on every platform, and we got a lot of varied responses in terms of performance. Isn't that right?
So I remember at the time when we were playing Elden Ring on the console and on PC. On the base PlayStation 5, actually, it seemed to be doing. Or was it PlayStation 4, Zubair?
I tried both versions on the console at the time. They were both doing pretty well.
It was like play the PS4 version on the PS5, and that was the best experience.
Oh,
Yes, I
yes.
agree. I agree.
Yeah, and at the time, we were also playing it on PC. And on PC, regardless of what your rig was, people were saying they've been having performance issues from the launch date itself. Even if you had a very bulky gaming rig, you could still be having frame rate dips and whatnot.
I mean, we know you had a lot of issues, right? So why don't you tell us about it? Like, I know you were really,
Yeah,
really frustrated about the whole thing. Folks, he was so frustrated that it was like, I'm
oh
never
yeah,
playing
I
Elden
still
Ring
have
ever.
not, by the way, because I still haven't really considered getting back to it, because there have been some other great releases as of late. But going back to Elden Ring, I pre-ordered the game, and at the time I was really struggling to play the game even on the low settings. But my system requirements actually meet the game's expectations of what it could handle. So, like, on paper, it should be running fine. So I thought, hey, why am I having this issue, right? So I went into Reddit, and it seems that I was not the only one. There were people with like much bulkier gaming rigs with better hardware. Yeah.
Larger issue, right? And I think I remember this very clearly. Even myself as a console main, folks. By the way, I do main on consoles, but I am an occasional PC gamer as well. Just so you know. So it's not like I consider one or the other to be lesser or more. Just I play just about everything that I can get my hands on. If it's a game I like, I will try and play it on whatever device or means that I can play it through. But yeah, coming back to this, I remember this discussion when I believe that Tausin got this nasty surprise, and I thought to myself, isn't PC supposed to be where the best output, the best presentation of a game usually comes through, and this shouldn't be happening, right? For a especially for
Yeah.
like a triple A game.
I fully agree with this. I feel like these games currently do have a huge budget and they do have a lot more reach than they used to. So these expectations of them at least working right out of the gate, I don't think are very unreasonable, right? And with Elden Ring's case and a lot of other games, it seems like something that patches are able to, no pun intended, address, right? Even
Oh,
in the
I see
case
what you did there.
it wasn't intentional, but anyway, consider Wild Hearts as well, which is kind of like a Monster Hunter's kind of game, right? Came out and had a similar kind of graphical issues as well, but once again, with a small patch released soon after, it seems that a lot of players found it more playable. So it seems that it doesn't matter how upgraded your rig is, these games seem to have these issues baked into them right out of the gate, and I think that's a big problem.
If you think about it, games these days are actually being made for the lowest common denominator, which in most cases is the console version. So when you transfer that console version over to the many configurations of PCs around, you're gonna have problems, and that's the main thing we're facing these days.
So it's a design issue, is what you're saying.
Not necessarily a design issue, it's also a hardware issue as well, because consoles are like static boxes, right? Their hardware won't change at all. So people can actually design for that specific set without any problems whatsoever. But when you take that same set and bring it over to PC, which can have like hundreds and hundreds of variations depending on your budget and where you're living, then you get a problem. Then that's when you get the many issues you're having these days, such as shader stuttering and whatnot.
Yeah, but the other issue that we have is when you come to like the PC builds, like PC gaming is an expensive hobby, right? It's expensive to get these motherboards, the GPUs, and the chipsets and make this rig. So players would have this expectation, all right, so I want to play, let's say, Jedi Survivor after downloading 155 GB, and I want to run this like absolute unit of a game as best as I can on my computer, right? Yeah, but like when you boot up the game like crashes 4 times, it's having weird audio bugs, and the game is struggling to run at least like in 15 FPS, and you have a whole Pandora's box of different issues. And the weird thing about this situation is like my rig would be different from let's say Mikha''s rig. So it's like finding a like a pin in a haystack when it comes to troubleshooting these things, right? And there's also like the GPU aspect of this that you have to consider. So some people will be using NVIDIA, others may be using Radeon, and then there's the model, and then there's the different various configurations that these models will have with regards to how they are handling the software, right? And then there's also the DirectX, like this is an entire can of worms, so to speak. So like Mikh'a said, it's very different, these configurations and how each unit handles these games. But yeah.
I know the main reason that, for example, you were talking about Jedi Survivor. One of the main reasons why Jedi Survivor was stuttering was because of shader compilation, which is basically it's trying to render all the things you see on screen perfectly to your specs, and that moment it takes to render or to make it appear is what's causing that stutter. With console games, the shader is pre-compiled, it's already ready, so you don't feel that. But PC games nowadays, they do it on the fly, and that's what's causing that momentary stutter.
Yeah.
Now, that brings up an interesting question. A lot of this stuff has been about graphical stuttering and all. Do you think that the journey towards high fidelity graphics that are never ending in the game industry is also somewhat tied into this?
I wouldn't say it's a recent thing, but we're definitely using a different production pipeline than before. We weren't making games by compiling shaders a long time back, right? That's why this issue is now becoming more pronounced, because our engines and everything are using these techniques now.
Yeah, speaking of the whole shader aspect, I think one of the major issues that everyone's noticing is the shader stuttering issues that are coming in many of these big games, big AAA games, and big releases like Elden Ring, Dead Space, even Hogwarts Legacy, which just came out this year as well.
If you had a AAA release, like, or a big release, it had PC problems, and most of the time it was shader. Like, it was either shader or traversal, which we'll get into, I guess.
Oh, that would be terrible. especially like as Tausi mentioned, like after you put all that effort into upgrading your rig and the download size and all of that stuff, when you experience issues like this, it really cheapens the experience, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really does. It's unfortunate. Yeah, so we talk stuttering, traversal stutters. These kind of issues are definitely stuff that will cheapen the experience. But there's also the issue of the upscale problems, right, guys? Like strobing, graphical glitches. Because as far as graphical glitches go, I'll tell you something that I recently experienced, and that is not even a new game. Okay, like I played Final Fantasy X on the Steam version. I actually played the Steam version recently, and I had to play an entire blitzball match with no visible players.
It actually sounds very interesting.
It's a nightmare.
Talk about hard mode.
But I won the match though, but don't worry. I just looked at the mini map and played, so I managed to survive that. But yeah, coming back to it, upscale problems, strobing. Go on. What do you guys think?
With upscale problems, what usually happens is that you're trying to display on high resolution and you have all these fancy new stuff like DLSS and whatnot.
I don't know. With the Final Fantasy one, that one was for just graphical glitches, just the usual minor glitches. I'm more curious about the upscale and the strobing issues. Go on.
So what happens is they're taking the native resolution and upscaling it to your monitor, right? And depending on the technique that you use, you're either getting like stuff like really weird volumetric lights, Redfall. I think there's a very interesting example of Redfall in Digital Foundry's video, where they show the fog just having a fit all over the place.
Oh yeah.
And then you have issues like lots of blurring even without anything happening on the screen. Like even if you have even if you have motion blur switched off.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not a bug; it's a feature, right?
I think when it comes to these issues like upscale, strobing and graphical glitches, you could pick up any recent release like Redfall and it would have all these in one game. But if you have like a game, let's say Jedi Survivor, then that would be more of like a strobing, and there were even like some very weird audio issues in that game, if I remember correctly. Isn't that right, Mikh'a?
Yeah, you're right. And I think there were strobing issues too, because some textures would just flicker on and off, like snap, snap, snap.
That being said, I mean, obviously, we've talked about some of the bad cases here. There are also good cases out there, right? I mean, like, are there any good ones out there that you guys can think of in terms of good PC ports? Any of them?
I can actually talk about the recent experience I've had with two major releases, I would say, starting with the Overwatch 2 and Diablo. So this could be just me. This could be a very isolated case or the minority where like a pool of good like PC players had a good experience with these games. But nonetheless, my experience with the open beta of Diablo 4 and Overwatch 2 was pretty good. Like I've had almost like no issues with Overwatch 2, and when it came to Diablo, like there were some waiting times of, let's say, I think it was less than a minute, but I don't think we could tie this issue down to a PC issue because the
More of a
servers
core game
would-
mechanic issue,
yeah.
right? Rather than
it is like, let's imagine like there's this gate and they're opening this gate and allowing people to walk into the Diablo 4 beta, right? And they're closing this gate after, let's say, 60 people has walked into this gate. Now the other 60 people must go and enter the other gate, right? So I don't know, Mikh'a, am I explaining this right? I feel like this could be a bad analogy.
Oh no, you're basically talking about server load, right? I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
The more people on screen, the more weirder it gets.
Yeah, exactly. But it wasn't really an issue per se. So other than that, Diablo 4 open beta has been like quite a good experience for me, and the game is right over the horizon. I think it's coming out on June 16th. So we will see when the full game comes out how it will do on the PC. But so far, I think we could count that as one of the few good experiences that we've had with the PC releases recently.
I'll say we'll keep a let's see on that before we jump to conclusions.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if we are going to talk about good experiences, I don't think of a lot of good PC ports, but I can think of PC ports that have been fixed really quick. I think that's good, right? Like, if we are kind of looking at bad PC ports, how it's handled, I suppose, is something we can look at. There are a few games, like I mentioned, Wild Hearts being one of them, where there were issues, but they were fixed with a quick patch, right? And this happened within days of its release. Now, I personally think it shouldn't have been a thing in the first place, but since it was fixed, a lot of players were able to get more enjoyment out of the game, especially on PC. And this game desperately needed that upgrade because it was one of those games like Monster Hunter where you could play with your friends and you could hunt monsters together. So having graphical issues or stuttering or like being unable to make, I guess, pitch perfect movement because you don't know exactly what's happening when ended up being a huge issue in the beginning that got ironed out real fast.
I think when we hear examples of good PC ports like this, or good experiences, as you mentioned, Moni, where they do the fix real quick as soon as it's identified, that sort of thing. It's actually in the favor of these developers who are going out of their way to make this fix real quick, especially given the current situation where there are so many the bad cases out there, right? Kind of makes you feel like that these developers are actually maybe paying attention.
Yeah, it definitely feels like they're taking care of their customers, right? As someone from
Yes, definitely, especially after most of these games are at the new, $70 price point. So you kind of feel like at the very least, hey, I should get to play the game I just bought, right?
Right.
So for them to do this really quick to fix it, I think is good.
Yeah.
But at the same time, on the other side of it, it's also a really difficult thing to do, right? Because I assume they would release these games thinking they would work. So to find out what's going wrong, how and where, and to fix it in like a short period of time is probably not an easy task to take on as well.
I'm not sure about that with many developers these days. Like, it's not. I don't know if you guys actually checked out any of the Gotham Knights PC port stuff.
Oh no!
But it didn't feel like the devs were. It felt like the devs knew exactly what was going to happen, but they released it anyway because schedule. But if we're looking at the opposite side of that, a really, really, really good PC port is actually Spider-Man Remastered, Insomniac Spider-Man.
Oh,
it explained all the graphical features, so even a layman has an understanding of everything. It had widescreen support. It had little to no stuttering or bugs, and even the little there was like fixed really quickly. That I think should be the standard that other PC devs should aspire to.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic when it comes to these if these bugs or if these issues can be like ironed out, right?
Yeah.
Because there are some things that like cannot be ironed out. Like we've had recently, like let's look at the elephant in the room, right? Let's look at Redfall. Let's talk about Redfall on PC. Like I don't think that this game can be fixed because
folks, the fact that we've talked about something positive and yet ended up here talking about the problems is just how the industry is. Go on.
Yes, so we can talk about Redfall and we can say that okay, it's a mess right now. It's a hot mess right now, but going forward, like with a lot of updates, with the amount of work CD Projekt Red has put into Cyberpunk, then this game could be, something. It could be something. I'm not going to say it's going to be a great game because underneath Redfall, like there isn't much that holding it together when it comes to like the story and the environment and all.
Yes,
but at least I feel like it could be made playable, but I don't think that amount of effort and that amount of resources would be allocated to
the game, right?
Redfall. Yeah, considering that the next big baby is on the horizon, like Starfield, right?
Yeah. It's a shame too. It's a shame. Yeah, go on.
I have two thoughts on this, right? First off, I think that perhaps if we could see some of these games being delayed on the production side so that these things don't happen in the first place, would that be a solution? That's something I'm thinking. But on the other hand, sorry, you
yeah, sorry. When you said if this game was being like delayed, right? Redfall is a game that's been delayed multiple times, right? But if it makes sense for a game to be delayed, to take some time to polish the game, to really, iron out the bugs and then put it on the market, right? We've had
Right.
really good like games like that has been delayed and came out like perfectly fine in really good condition. I can't really name any names for PC, but on the Nintendo Switch, we've had Animal Crossing New Horizons, right? That game
And
was,
also Zelda.
and also Zelda, yes, that got delayed, but came out pretty well.
Yeah, so on one end, I'm thinking, okay, could this be like a solution? But at the same time, it is as you said, like these games are being released in a state that is considered unplayable, not even borderline, literally, right? But the thing that complicates this is that we have seen games like No Man's Sky and
Oh,
Cyberpunk slowly patch these issues out.
Yeah.
Come back from the grave, right?
I don't know whether holding on for the No Man's Sky revival for every broken game is a good thing for gaming going forward, so we might want to be cautiously optimistic. What do you think?
I think that's a fair approach to it. Yeah, so let's go back to hardware again. I've been thinking while we were talking about this because one of the things I've noticed is like eventually you're going to have to upgrade the components in your gaming rig. And I think that's one of the key criticisms or rather concerns by even folks who want to enter into into PC gaming, which is how long will my hardware stay relevant? Like, as in the sense that what's the next time for me to be upgrading my graphics card or any of the items that I gotta make my gaming experience better. What do you guys think on this? Are there any good alternative methods or ways for people to preserve the longevity of their hardware or something like that?
Yeah, so like when you like walk into the PC gaming, you'll spend a good amount of your money into like building a gaming rig and getting the graphics card, getting the CPUs and the processors and whatnot. And the thing about this is like the very first thing that would come to a lot of people said is, okay, how can I future proof this? Like, how can I use the same rig in the next 5 years or in the next 3 years, right?
Right.
And for instance, let's say you have a 1050 Ti, like this came out in 5 or 6 years ago. Yeah, a while back. It came out a while back, and the thing is, with this GPU, you could still run a lot of these games on at least mid or low resolutions, and you would have a good enough time with these games. But people are coming into the PC gaming, walking into the PC gaming experience, at least a lot of them have the expectation that they are going to really beef up the system, really get a good PC gaming rig and run these games on like ultra high, like and when you install these games and when you run them, it starts running into all sort of these issues. And then you have your friend over there like with the Nintendo Switch running Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild or Legend of the Zelda Tears of the Kingdom like perfectly fine. It runs really well on their console, right?
Right.
But this is a very interesting conversation because the same game could run very well on the PC now with the emulation.
I'd say you need more power to emulate any console on PC. That said, with the way things are now, I think it's rather dire for people who are trying to future-proof stuff. Because if you look at recent releases, it's like they're leaning on superior hardware as a crutch. Like Last of Us on ultra settings, it requires an RTX 4090. Even Forspoken had these ridiculous requirements on PC, and it felt like the developers were using it as a crutch to avoid optimizing the game, or at least that's how the general consensus felt at the time. So if you're trying to future-proof it, thinking that hey, my 4090 is gonna be able to play this perfectly, it doesn't seem to be the case. It's really a game by game basis.
Yeah, it's a really complicated conversation because there's a lot of things involved here. But the more we talk about these like future proofing and how we can make these like have a problem-free PC gaming rig, I don't think it exists right now. So even if you have a 4080 Ti or like Core i9, whatever have you, like it will obviously run into issues if you are trying to play like Jedi Survivor or Redfall or games like recent PC AAA games, right?
So I think here's what I just took from this. It's that because it seems to be a more perpetual form of ever increasing, evolving of the hardware. One of the realistic things that a PC gamer, both existing PC gamers and those who are entering into the field, should be acknowledging the fact that they have to manage their expectations, right?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
It seems a little disempowering, to be sure, but at the same time, I think that the more these issues occur and the more these companies are realizing how upset it makes these gamers, I think that the chances of people actually putting in the work to prevent them also rises, because the more this issue is talked about, it helps.
I was going to add one more positive note to this, in the sense that there are still games which don't necessarily require a very heavy, intensive graphic requirement or engine requirement, and you can still have a good time. In fact, one of our favorites here at MN Gaming, I think, is FF14, right?
Ah, yes.
You guys want to weigh in on that?
Mikh'a, if I'm not wrong, plays FF14 on the PC now, right? And I play it on the console, and we've been playing together, I think, a few months, like last month a little bit and a little bit this month as well. And the cross-play experience has been phenomenal on both ends. Like, I've never had any graphical issues or any compatibility issues, or any connection issues for that matter. And I don't think he has either.
Oh, surprisingly, I did, but it's kind of hard to pinpoint it to the game being the cause, because my previous graphic card actually just died during a raid, so I can't quite say it's not
when we did play together, not during high-end raid content.
Yeah, it's never when we were playing together. So it's very good, even with lower-end hardware. But I think part of the reason was because Final Fantasy XIV was originally released for PS3, and that was the lowest common denominator back in the day. It's no longer supported now, but it's still on PS4. And when you take that amount of graphical fidelity, it's really not pushing current systems now. So it's...
So I think it's a positive take, right? I mean, like, we're talking about games, AAA games, and a lot of games that modern releases that have such high requirements that maybe at the onset it might discourage folks into thinking that there really aren't any good games out there, which you wouldn't have to put in that kind of investment in your gaming rigs to get a good experience out of it. But we can see to the contrary that there are really good games that people can play that don't necessarily require.
I think even in terms of like the industry, previously when you've have like really bad PC games, it's not really talked about. Like the devs just chose to sort of like ignore the problem. But with games like Star Wars, Jedi Survivor, and even with Redfall, like the developers have come out saying, hey, this wasn't our best work. We are going to try and make it better for the PC players. And even with like Redfall, Phil Spencer actually got on a podcast to say that he addressed the Xbox community, he addressed the PC community, saying this is not going to be the state of game releases from Microsoft going forward. So I think we can take some amount of hope going forward that things are going to get better, since now the problem is being talked about more and it's been acknowledged on the side of the publishers and the developers. So it looks good.
When the big names in gaming come out to talk about it, that it's been heard, huh?
Yeah.
So one of the things that I think happens in the gaming in general, I think, is that we tend to talk about the negatives more than the positives. If you're going into PC gaming, you should be concerned about what's happening, but you shouldn't be too put off by it either, because there's been plenty of good PC releases as well. Like this is again going to be a very subjective thing, because once again, different configurations, different PCs. But I had a great time playing. One of the games that I played very recently on PC was V Rising, and that worked like a charm. I also played Red Dead Redemption 2, and that also surprisingly played like a charm. And I played Divinity Original Sin 2, and that also played perfectly on PC for me. So it's not always bad, it's just that the bad tends to take a lot of space in the mediascape, and we associate it with PC gaming going down the bad route. That's not the case. We have plenty of good releases as well, but we need to address the issues that we have as well.
Yes, I think that what's happening here is that more big name games are turning up short when it comes to PC ports, and it's becoming more conspicuous. Like, once upon a time, you could perhaps make a claim that Japanese developers were not used to developing for PC or something like that, but that's not the case anymore, you know? And you see that the West also releases some really shoddy PC ports to compete with some of the Japanese PC ports from back in the day, so it's not really a thing. It's just seemingly a thing that happens, perhaps due to mismanagement of time, mismanagement of resources, or perhaps it is just simply difficult to design for a variety of PCs. But either way, it has been a thorn that has been in our side, huh? And it's been getting more and more annoying.
Without context, you'd think they were all competing for last place, right?
I was just thinking.
Actually, that reminded me of a really good conversation. When it comes to like these, who's doing it better? Is it the West or the East? We recently have Phantasy Star 2 on PC, and it was a really good port on PC as well. Like, we've had a really good time. Me and Mikh'a. I think Mikh'a, you were playing on the console,
I was
right,
playing.
at the time. Or was it
I
on
was playing
PC
on both,
as well?
but when I was with you, I was mostly on console.
Yeah, that was a really good PC port as well. Like, we had a really good time with that game as well. So it's not like everyone's saying, it's not all bad. It's just that recently the big AAA games have been coming up short when it comes to
I was going to touch on that point as well. Like, Mikh'a makes a good point in the sense that a lot of the media coverage on the negativities often overshadows the positives, the parts that we can actually enjoy about PC gaming. And as Mikh'a has pointed, there are good ones out there. I think we just have to look a little bit more, right, amidst the whole negativity that is currently surrounding this whole issue and the ports. So, there's one more thing that's just on my mind, I think, as we head towards wrapping up, is that because of the negativities surrounding the PC gaming at this time, due to the recent string of unsuccessful or less than ideal port releases out there, some folks have been considering, many communities, whether the preservation of PC gaming, releases is in jeopardy or not. It's because on the one side, they may assume that, are the developers even paying attention? Do they even care anymore about PC gaming or not? As in, what do you guys think?
So when it comes to like the game preservation on PC, I think the PC itself is this may be quite a different like view on this, but the PC is essentially able to emulate a lot of games that come to like other consoles, right? Even with like popular, let's take Nintendo for example. Like, a PC player would be able to emulate like the most recent Nintendo releases, be it like Tears of the Kingdom, Fire Emblem Three Houses, like the Pokemon games, what have you. Like, you could emulate these games, and they would be, depending on how, like, on your configuration and how you set up your emulator, it will probably run much better than on the base console on the Nintendo Switch. So when it comes to the topic of preservation, you could have a lot of games that are, you can store these games on the PC, right? You can run these games on the PC, games that are not readily available for PC players. I think
it's not only the running aspect behind it either, because PC gaming is so wide and accessible to so many people on different platforms. We have a lot more people who are actually willing to go inside the guts of a game to actually preserve a copy, to make it so that it's possible to run it on current platforms or not, or to even just back it up on a server.
Now, talking about PC games and preservation, there is something that I do want to bring up, which I think is a bit of a challenge for preservation: the idea of online servers, right? So yeah, a lot of these games do need online connectivity, and they do have servers to play on. So when these companies move on from these games to other games, over time these servers keep getting shut down, and these games keep getting left on the wayside. Another issue for PC gamers that they have to face one day. Will your favorite game be the next one that just has its curtains, kind of drawn and the plug pulled? We never know.
Yeah, that's. I think that's actually a bigger like aspect, like a wider curtain that would not only affect PC players, even the consoles like live service games will have their own like servers that will one day be phased out, and the players will no longer be able to access these games on their online servers, right? Not just online servers. I feel like this is a much bigger conversation where like the conversation about the digital purchases, the online stores come into place, where you could say, hey, the Nintendo 3DS eShop is now no longer usable, so all the eShop games are phased out. You can't really access them unless you have them already downloaded on your 3DS, right? So it's completely gone now. So it's a very, how do I say it? It's a very, there are many things involved when it comes to the online stuff of gaming, the online servers, the eShops, the digital purchases, and whatnot.
Right.
It's not a PC specific issue, but I do think that it also impacts PC game preservation in a way, which is where I think the connectivity
So
of
with
these two
regards
issues
to
lie.
what you mentioned, Silver, we actually have a big win in the case of the original Demon Souls on PS3. So I'm not sure if you guys are aware of it, but there is a private individual, I think his name is Yuvi, who actually runs his own private server called the Arkstones, which allows you to play the original PS3 online currently. And this is what I was trying to mention before, is that even if companies and the devs actually shut down their servers, with how wide the PC gaming net is, there are usually people who are motivated enough to provide the service, even at their own expense, so that other people can enjoy that experience. And that's a big win for PC gaming.
Yeah, and that's...
I think so too. Right. So we've talked about a lot of stuff in hindsight about things that have been happening in the recent past and present. So as we wrap up this episode of Checkpoint Coffee, what are you guys looking forward to in terms of any gaming releases, stuff like that?
Okay, can I start this one?
Oh, good.
All right, 2023 is the year that they're supposed to be releasing Baldur's Gate 3 and The Wolf Among Us 2 and also System Shock. And there's a new Aliens game, so I'm kind of excited for a lot of this stuff. Like, System Shock is a game that I've wanted to play for a long time, and now they're just bringing it back, so I'm like, okay, I gotta give that a try. Baldur's Gate, big fans of Larian Studio.
I love The Wolf Among Us. I love The Wolf Among Us.
They're getting a second part, which I really thought we wouldn't, because I heard that Telltale
Same.
at the doors.
This is really good news. You're right.
Yeah, very exciting. And I'm looking forward to trying them out on PC and not having it blow up in my face. Fingers crossed.
Right, of course. Does it?
Yeah, on that note, Moni, I actually have quite good news for you if you're looking for Baldur's Gate 3 on PC. It's quite good. I've purchased it and I have been playing it for some time. Baldur's Gate is a very good game, and on PC it runs quite well as well.
Excellent.
Yeah, I've previously played Divinity Original Sin 2, so I'm like familiar with Larian Studios, and this is one of the more responsive like community like studios who engage with the community and listen to feedback and move forward, like responding and like taking into action the suggestions from the community. So Larian Studios is a great developer when it comes to this. And the other game personally I am looking forward to this year is Diablo 4. I've already been like spent some time in the open like demo, and I've had a very good experience with this. I have not been this excited for a Diablo game in a very long time. Like, I've played Diablo 3. I was somewhat disappointed by how they've handled the game throughout, but Diablo 4, very excited for it. Can't wait for it to come out. Yes, Mikh'a,
Right.
I think it's your turn now.
Yeah. What do you got?
Oh, I don't think many people will actually know this title, but I recently found out that there's a remake of a very old game that I used to play as a kid. It's called Little Big Adventure. That is specifically one title I'm actually looking forward to playing on PC. And I really doubt it's going to come on console, so it's good that we got PC gaming, because that is a blast of nostalgia from my past.
Right.
I love the name. It sounds very wholesome.
It is very wholesome, but we'll discuss that a completely another time.
So touching back on the last topic we just talked about, your childhood preserved bit of it?
Oh yeah, completely. I'm not a fan of the graphical direction they're going into, but it's definitely being preserved 100%.
All right, that's good to hear.
What about you, Thunder Toys? Do you have a game that you're looking forward to look, see how it does on PC as well?
Well, you know me, I'm mostly a console main, but I will tell you this: you and Mikh'a, both of you guys have gotten into my head so much about Final Fantasy XIV that
Oh yes.
I've decided that I'm gonna be playing this on a more regular basis. In fact, I actually just started up a few days ago, but I haven't really gotten into it as much, you know. So I mean, not out of a lack of interest, but just time. I'm gonna make time, and I'm gonna set myself a schedule to really play this through. So far, I'm very impressed. Enjoying what I've been having so far in the starting levels and stuff. So yeah, I can see the appeal, and I'm looking forward to enjoying more of Final Fantasy XIV. Also, since on the topic of Final Fantasy XIV, I'm also playing the Final Fantasy 10 and 10.2 PC versions because I want to play a pretty slow burn save, you know, like a really slow and methodical playthrough this time around. So there are a few things I want to try out, which I might have tried ages ago. I've forgotten how many times I've cleared the game, but hey, you know, just trying something else again. So, yeah.
Sounds great.
Don't worry, Thunder Toys. We'll get you into a session of Baldur's Gate or Divinity one of these days.
Oh, no. Right, folks. So I think that'll wrap up for our episode of Checkpoint Coffee, where we've talked about the highs and lows of modern PC gaming, the state of PC gaming as it is. So you guys have been really giving some insightful thoughts into this, and I think it's a situation where we are seeing a lot of negativities around us at the time, but at the same time, as you guys have pointed out, there are the good aspects within PC gaming still there if we just look into it a little bit more, and I think be vigilant of what to expect, right?
Exactly. And it's actually quite an exciting time to be a PC gamer, like ironically, because we've had like ironically, yes, because we've had nothing but failures recently when it comes to PC ports. But I think guys, the big one is on the horizon, right on the horizon. The Starfield will make things right.
You can't blame the man's optimism, folks.
Hey, listen, if Starfield is gonna be the game that they're gonna be releasing on every platform for the next 10 years, you can bet that whatever bugs they'll have, they'll re-release them too.
Now they have, a real motive to really fix that game.
Starfield Nebula Edition, Starfield Milky Way Edition. Yeah, I can see that happening.
Starfield Complete Edition, Game of the Year Edition, 10-year Anniversary Edition.
Yeah,
oh my god.
Don't forget the VR version.
None of those games will have a physical copy.
Oh.
Okay, alright. So, okay, folks, I think we'll wrap it up for this time in this episode. Thank you all for joining in, and we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.
See ya.
Bye.
Night. That's gonna be it for this episode of Checkpoint Coffee. Thanks for listening, folks. Give us a like and subscribe if you're listening to us on YouTube. We'll meet you again next month for more gaming and pop culture reviews and discussions.